Hello and welcome to my review of the Adeptus Mechanicus Codex. Like most codexes, this one will set you back £25. It's a hardback codex that consists of 104 pages, so it's a little bit short, especially when you compare it to the Imperial Knight Codex, which, let's face it, has only really got one model. That's 120 pages. Now, I was a bit taken aback about how short this codex really was, especially when you compare it to the other two codexes that were in 7th edition, the Scutari that came out, and then the Cult Mechanicus Codex, both of which have a solid 80 pages. That's 160 pages. I'm not saying that's how it works. 160 should be 160. I'm not saying that at all. And I'm overjoyed that you've basically got both of these books in one codex. That's how it should have been from the start. Maybe that's their plan. They know these things in years in advance and stuff, but these two codexes did come out 4 years ago, and this one came out last year in 2017. But this is how it should be. Adeptus Mechanicus Codex, maybe in 9th edition in a few years time or 4 years time or whatever time scale is. Maybe we'll have transport options and flyers and things like that, or maybe they'll just open their hearts as a reaction to the positive feedback that custodians have had. They originally had their own separate game with separate rules. Then they brought out the 40K miniatures. Then they had a huge run of all the Forge World miniatures, and hopefully they'll do that with their Forge World Mechanicum range, because I really do think it would sell them the models. Some of those Mechanicum models are incredible, and I'd love to add them to my collection, and of course try and get you some content on them as well. Anyway, enough about that. Let's have a look at the book. I think it's a great book because, like I said, it essentially incorporates 3 codexes, I want to say. The Cult Mechanicus, the Scutari, and the Imperial Knights. I'm only calling them Scutari instead of Scutarii. I much prefer Scutarii. It comes from Roman times. But to please everybody, I'm just going to call them Scutari in this video. So yeah, it incorporates all the 3 codexes in one, 8th edition. Let's open it and have a look. So I've done the first look of this book when I first got this, but I got this last year sometime, I think. And as a follow-on of the Forgebane box set, I'll be going through all of the units in this book that I own, and I will actually be buying a few units that I don't own, just to try and cover them, because their codex was released, and I don't think they released a new Start Collecting set or anything like that. If you haven't already checked out that set, that's a great set. It's £50. You get the Tech Priest in there, which is £22. You get an Onager Dunecrawler, which I think is £35. It might even be £40. It's a fair amount of money, but and then you get a squad of Rangers, or you can have them as Vanguard, whichever. So it's a decent set. So, 100 pages, or 104 pages, not many. Let's have a look at the contents. So you get the Disciples of the Machine God, so a nice section of 59 pages. So most of the book is fluff and backstory. And then from page 72 onwards, you get all of the unit data sheets, and then you get some Congregations of War from page 94 for the last sort of 10 pages. So you get an introduction, greetings, devotee of the machine god. I've always been very intrigued when I started this hobby over 20 years ago about the history of the Mechanicus and of Mars. I've been very fascinated by it, and yeah, look at that incredible bit of artwork there with the Tech Priest, and it just really puts the spotlight on the Mechanicum, this sort of relentless kind of machine, this blend of technology and machine, very efficient, very calculating force in the galaxy. Here it is cleansing Tyranids, probably one of the best armies to cleanse Tyranids, because Tyranids can't really, there's not much for the Tyranids to sort of consume, whereas the Mechanicum, they can rebuild. There's a really good story in here of little machines going out and collecting all the dead machines and bringing them back into the middle of the planet and rebuilding them, and then launching assaults again against the enemy, and I think that's excellent. I really do. It kind of reminds me of Necrons in a way. It talks to you about the rise of the Mechanicum, the Scutari legions, the Legio Cybernetica, and the Questor Mechanicus. Gives you a nice overview of Mars and the maniples, and the priests of the Omnissiah. So you've got the Magi, the Genitors, the Logi or Logi, the Logi, the Artisans. You get the ever-present map that accompanies every codex in 8th edition that focuses on the cicatrix maledictum, basically this rip in real space caused by chaos, and all chaos are flooding out. So, and then you've got some of the key forge worlds. This map is specific to each codex. It focuses on that army's presence in the galaxy at this time. So you've got the Forge Worlds here, so you've got Mars. This is the sort of centre of the universe. No, it's not. It's the centre of this galaxy. So you've got Mars, and you've got Styges, and you've got Riser, and you've got Metallica. Yeah, there is a Forge World called Metallica. Imagine they've just got Sandman playing on loudspeaker all the time there. So it focuses on the Forge Worlds themselves, gives them a bit of fluff and backstory. So you've got Mars, Lucius. First Titan that I ever bought was a Lucius pattern Warhound Titan. They don't make them anymore since Lucius was blown up. I mean, Forge World, the company, took them out of circulation. This is what happens with resin models. Sometimes the mould itself just gets beyond repair, you know, the master moulds and things. And it was definitely showing its age. Hell, even the Mars pattern is showing its age now. That's been around for 14, 15 years, I want to say. It's been around a long, long time, the Mars pattern Titan, with its photocopied black and white pictures of the parts rather than a proper kind of instruction guide. Anyway, that's where I got my first Warhound Titan from. And then you got a Gripnar, or a Gripnar, Styges 8 or Styges 8, Grya, Metallica, Riser. I love the orange, obviously. Triplex Fall, Demos. You might hear, you know, some rhinos like Demos pattern Rhino and, you know, things like that. Voss Prime, Griffin 4, and then the Ever Faithful. So you get a load of sort of 3D images here of some Castellan robots. The Mechanicus Knights. So you've got a Princeps, and then you've got all the Masters, including a Baron, and then you get the different Knights. So there's a nice section of Knights here. House Raven, House Vulca, House Tyrannus, House Crast, and then you've got a nice timeline here. Covers 4 pages, everything from Millennium 15 to 25, all the way up to the Fall of Cadia and the Bane of the Forge Worlds and the Indomitus Crusade, which is where we are now. We're 100 years after the 41st millennium. We're 100 years after the sort of foundation of the Primaris Space Marines and things. That's pretty much where we are now. Lovely, lovely picture here. 2 Warhound Titans. I mean, let's face it, the Mechanicus, the Adeptus Mechanicus, they make all the armour, all the weapons, the Knights, the Titans, the ammunition, everything you can think of to do with the war. The Mechanicus and all the Forge Worlds make those things. These Forge Worlds it's a whole planet dedicated to making all of these items for the Imperium of Man. Among other things, obviously. I mean, can you even imagine a world that's just dedicated to that? Anyway, these guys do it. A nice introduction to Belisarius Cawl, who is the main guy at the moment. He's been working on the Primaris Space Marines for the past sort of 10,000 years, and their newer weapons like the Repulsor tank and the Redemptor Dreadnought and the bolt rifles and so on. He's been tweaking the Maximus power armour, Tech Priest Dominus, the Tech Priest Engine Seers, and then their Servitors as well, the Castellan robots and the Data Smiths, the Fulgurite Electro-priests and the Corpuscari Electro-priests. Not a huge fan of them, but I can see why they exist. Cataphrone breachers and the destroyers. These are more kind of my things, sort of cybernetic kind of robots and things on tracked mounts. Means they can carry the heavier weaponry, they're less vulnerable. Then you've got Skitarii Rangers and Vanguard. You get them in one set, and you can make either or. Fiddly models to make. The Sicarian Ruststalkers. I really like the idea of the Ruststalkers and the Infiltrators as kind of like the infiltrating force that are going ahead in front of a bigger, more heavily armed Mechanicus army. And they're definitely prevalent in the Emperor of Mankind novel, when it's actually slaves that it's going back to the Electro-priests, but it's essentially the Mechanicum of lobotomized horrible murderers. This galaxy, it's not some distant dystopia where everybody lives in peace. Well, clearly not, because it's, there is only war. That's the main tagline of Warhammer 40,000. It's even got the word war in it. But what I'm trying to say is some horrific murderers and criminals and really vile people have been lobotomized by the Mechanicum. They've been given to them, and they've been lobotomized and then used and had a weapon strapped to them, and had a load of implants and things, and they were actually the first ones out in the little story to go check out any threats, and then these guys sort of followed suit. And so on. I won't spoil the story too much though. Sidonian Dragoons, so you've basically got your Vanguard or your Ranger. You've got your Ranger there, and you've got your Vanguard there, on these big bipedal fast walkers, very fast walkers. So you've got two different types there, lovely models. Then you've got the Onager Dunecrawlers, or Onager Dunecrawlers, whatever you wish to call them, however you wish to pronounce them. They are these four-legged tanks, basically, that mount these heavy weapons on. It's a shame they've only got 4 legs. I suppose that's less of a thing to go wrong. However, if you knock one leg out, they're pretty much screwed. But again, you've got some Rangers supporting this one, and it looks like they're against Chaos. And then Knights Warden. So you've got Knights Warden. It covers all the Knights. The Paladin, the Errant, and the Gallant, and the Crusader. So it goes through the Knights as well, which the Mechanicum obviously build, and they use, and they have their own knightly houses. So then the Codex goes through some absolutely stunning works of art, specifically Belisarius' core, with all those bits of bronze and brass and metal and blues and shading and reds, just incredible. Then some more. You've got the Tech Priest engines here, which was only a model with a I think it was a start collecting set of Imperial Guard, but then he became available, and he's now an individual model himself. Then you've got some Rangers, an Onager Dunecrawler, and Ballistarius, and an Iron Strider. Then you got Tech Priest and some Electro-priests. Interesting colour scheme there. I think that's Riser. And then you got some funky Castellan robots there. I wasn't a big fan of them. It's lucky that their rules are so awesome, because I wouldn't touch them with a barge pole, but they do date back a long time in the whole scheme of things. One of the earliest robots the Mechanicum sort of came up with. Then you've got some Vanguard. So the Vanguard are the ones with the sort of metal helmets, I want to say, whereas the Rangers are the ones with the hooded. Exactly the same model pack, same legs and everything, same and different weapons though. So you've got they have the rifles, and then the Vanguard have the radium carbines. Then you've got some Knights there, and some Breachers. Both those are Breachers. They're the ones with like the power claw type weapons. And then you've got some Infiltrators and Ruststalkers, and then Force Acquisitorius. So your typical picture, your typical force makeup there. You've got, and coincidentally, it's the one in the start collecting set. How convenient. You've got the 10 Rangers there, the Tech Priest, and the Onager Dunecrawler. Lovely big base there for him too. This picture is a little bit kind of out of focus. It might be the printing, but it seems a bit blurry. Not the usual standard sort of compared to that one or even that one. And then you've got a much larger force. Games Workshop love doing this. They love giving you a bit of a tease with a little force. Oh yeah, you know, you can start off your army like this, and then all of a sudden you wake up one morning and you've got a force this size with an Imperial Knight there. I want to do a quick maths cap with this one and just give you the price of this sort of large army, really. I want to say almost £500 for that army. Fair bit of money. But it's got everything here, from Onager Dunecrawlers to Castellan robots to the Imperial Knights. So if you like robots and you like kind of, I don't know, good guys, I suppose, and you like high strength weaponry, a good bit of resistance, then this is the army for you, definitely. You can have big robots in it too. Okay, so this is part of the book where they talk about the keywords, so the Forge World, Household, and the abilities. And the main ability here for Adeptus Mechanicus is the Canticles of the Omnissiah. I won't go through these now, but I did go through them in the review of the Tech Priest Dominus. There are quite a few units in this book that have Canticles of the Omnissiah, and it's basically a chant that you can roll for, or you can pick. But if you roll for it and you get the same result the next turn, you can actually use it. Whereas if you just pick it, you can't use that again in the rest of the battle. That's pretty much how that works. And it just buffs the army, buffs the unit, and really helps them in battle. So you've got everything from re-rolling failed hit rolls of a 1 to plussing their strength. So it's a nice buff there for all the units that have Canticles of the Omnissiah. Now we go into the unit profiles of the Codex. It goes from page 74 to I think 94. Let's double check this. 88 then. Okay, so you've got 14 pages there of pure unit profiles. There's no like dividing pages where there's just artwork or anything like that. I would much prefer, like I've said in every single Codex review, I'd much prefer a picture of that unit there. That is a perfect example. That's what I want to see. I want to see a snapshot of the unit. It doesn't have to be the whole unit in shot. It can just be part of the unit. And then the unit profile itself. They've done it there with the Warden. They've done it there with the Gallant. They didn't do it there with the Crusader because that's the Gallant there. But still, you get where I'm coming from. And I think that works the best out of every Codex that they've done. And I just wish that they stick to that formula. There's no, change for change's sake. I'm not a big fan of. That does nothing to me there. That just looks like they're trying to be Forge World and they're not. This to me looks like Games Workshop, and this is what I much prefer in my Codex layout. But hey, I'm not a huge fan of this at all. If we've got this, I might as well just get the digital edition, or I might just get it online. This is not the reason why you buy the hardback book, why you spend £25 on the book, in my opinion, because you can get this information anywhere. Back to the Codex review. So you've got HQ section, first of all, 3 nice choices here. You've got the guy himself, Belisarius Call. Very, very decent choice. He's pricey at 250 points or so, but if you're playing a 2,000 point game, even maybe a 1,500 point game, I'd be cheeky and take him, because he's like the Dominus, but everything's better. Obviously his axe is the same. Well, it's actually strength 6 now, because he's got his base strength of strength 5, but everything's pretty much a 2+ in terms of weapon skill and save. His toughness is 6, his wounds are 8, his solar atomizer is incredible. He's a Lord of Mars, so you can re-roll any hit rolls in the shooting phase for friendly Mars units within 6 inches. He's got his invulnerable save. He's got the Master of Machines. Saying that, the Tech Priest at sort of half price-ish is not too shabby either, and will definitely help improve the resilience of your army and its ability to regain wounds, and also buff your army with its canticles and re-rolling hit rolls of a 1 for units. His weapon's pretty good. The axe it's alright, it's strength 5, AP -2, but as I said in the review, I'd keep your Tech Priests a little bit out the way, whereas Belisarius, I'd get stuck in with him. The Tech Priest, he's an interesting one because his save is worse. He's got a 3+ save, but he still has 4 wounds, but his weapon skill and ballistic skill aren't nearly as good as just the normal Tech Priest. But he does have a servo arm, which can make 1 strength 8 attack. So whether you think 1 strength 8 attack is better than 3 strength 5 attacks is completely up to you, but at least he's got that. Then we move straight into troops. We don't even hold breath. We're bang on in there with Skitarii Rangers. You'll see movement 6 a lot in this book. I think that's quite a decent movement speed. To be honest, it is faster than a lot of the Necron units. They move 5 inches. This is where things get interesting because how efficient the machines are, or Adeptus Mechanicus is, starts to shine through a little bit. They're rangers. They've got their galvanic rifles, which are a great 30-inch range weapon, and you can get your AP -1 off of that, which is a nice little bonus. Hence why their ballistic skill is 3+ and not the other way around. So instead of both of the weapon skill and ballistic skill being 4+ or 3+, it focuses on the ballistic skill. They're quite squidgy, I'd say, with a strength of 3 and a toughness of 3. They're quite weak, but the save isn't too bad. 4+, it's only 1 less than, the fabled power armour. But you are going to be able to wound these guys. These guys have got a long range weapon, that 30-inch range weapon, and they've got bionics, which give them a 6+ invulnerable save. You can give them omnispecs, you can give them special weapons. One of the special weapons is a transuranic arquebus. Good luck pronouncing that after a few drinks. That's a whopping 60-inch range, big sniper rifle. It's a strength 7 AP -2 weapon. It does D3 damage, and on 6s you get mortal wounds in addition to the normal damage. So that's very decent. 60-inch range sniper rifle is quite horrific. Something that's further range than the fabled las cannon. The model looks really cool too. He's got a little bipod thing that holds the barrel too. Then we're still into troops. Skitarii Vanguard, similar kind of unit to the Rangers, same stat line, same invulnerable save, same normal save. However, these guys are the ones with the metal helmets. They're mainly metal anyway, aren't they? Let's face it. But the radium carbines, bit shorter range unit, 18 inches, but they do get 3 shots each. So, a squad of, and you can have 10 of them. It's a shame you can't have 20 of them. That would have been great, but a squad of 10 of them, you have them all with the radium carbines, which would be quite rare anyway, and you've got 30 shots pumping out there. Yes, it's only strength 3, but wounding on a 6, you inflict 2 damage. So 60, 60 damage possible. Well, you need 6s. But because they've got the rad saturation, you're reducing the toughness of enemy units within 1 inches. So when they're in close combat, other than vehicles, when you're in close combat, you're reducing the toughness. So they're putting them on a level footing if it's Space Marine equivalent. Toughness 4 down to 3, and they've got toughness 3. Cataphron breachers and destroyers. They're the robots with the heavy weapon platforms on. These guys, look, the breachers and the destroyers. Yes, these tracked heavy units are troops. So that means that, if you want to go for destroyers, you can have 12 of them, which is horrific. The unit contains 3, but you can have up to 9 additional ones. And it's the same story with the breachers. The breachers are more close combat sort of focused. They've got the arc claw, which adds 1 to their strength. The destroyers don't have a melee weapon at all. They're only sort of range weaponry, but wow, the weapons that they have. Anyway, back to the breachers. The breachers are a little bit cheaper. They've got a better save, more attacks. Their arc claw against vehicles, damage D3. They can have a hydraulic claw instead. They don't suffer the penalty for firing a heavy weapon when moving, and that's the same rule that the destroyers have. Their standard weapons, which is the heavy arc rifle, still a 36-inch range weapon, and they're still movement 6 inches, so they're not movement 5 or 4 or anything like that. Their ballistic skill, weapon skill 4+, quite good. Their toughness is 5, their wounds are 3. but the heavy arc rifles, 36-inch range, 2 shots, you know, so you got 3 of them. That's your 6 shots. It's strength 6, AP -2, damage D3. Against vehicles, even better. And the same for the arc claws, so you can have them with heavy arc rifles and arc claws. The torsion cannons, less range, higher strength, higher AP, more damage against normal things. And then the destroyers, wow, the weapons for these guys. They normally have a plasma culverin. If you've seen the trailer for the Castellan Knight, the big plasma weapon looks like a much bigger plasma culverin. Maybe it's a macro plasma culverin or something like that. But the plasma culverin, you can supercharge it to a strength 8. It's basically like a plasma cannon, but the bearer can be slain if you supercharge it. You can choose the phosphor blaster, which is all right, or the heavy grav cannon, which mine have, which is a 30-inch range. Not too bad, but it's heavy, but it's 5 shots, and if the targets have a 3+ save, then you do damage of D3. So more range than the Castellan breaches, and the save also reflects that. They've only got a save of a 4+ rather than the 3+. Servitors are in the elite section too. They've got a power level of 4. You have 4 of them. You can't have any more. It would be nice if you could have 10, you know, all equipped with plasma cannons. Cheap unit. Still got an alright save though. They're let down with their weapon skill and ballistic skill, I have to say. They've got and they have to replace the servo arm, which is the, you know, ×2 strength, which only puts their strength to 6, by the way, with one of the big weapons like the multi-melter or whatever you choose. But you have them near a tech priest, and their weapon skill and ballistic skill gets bumped up to a 4+. So tech priest is a must for these servitors. You're still with elites here, and we've got the Cybernetica Datasmith. He's a separate unit now in his own. However, he really comes into his own when you deploy him near Castellan robots, within 6 inches to be precise. It's nice that he's a separate unit. You know, he's got his gamma pistol, which is a decent 12-inch range strength 6 AP3 weapon with damage of 2, and he's got a power fist, so he's not to be sort of smirked at. He's got his 2+ normal save and a 5+ invulnerable, kind of like a little tech priest in a way, you know, moving about at movement 6 inches, firing off that gamma pistol and, you know, tearing stuff up with his strength 8 power fist and buffing the robots. So he's a decent little unit in his own. The Sicaran Rust Stalkers and Infiltrators. So these two are elite choices, very similar to one another. The Rust Stalkers are the ones with the transonic razors and cord claws, and the Infiltrators are the ones with the stub carbines and power swords. So it really depends what you want to go for. The transonic razors can dish out mortal wounds, but you need 6s. The unit itself is quite squishy. They've got 2 wounds each with a save of 4+, and they do have their bionics, which is a 6+ invulnerable. Their weapon skills and ballistic skills are both 3+ for both units. It's just the Rust Stalkers have their 3 attacks, whereas the Infiltrators, the ones with the power swords, only have 2 attacks, and you've got to have the Princeps in there too. You can give the Infiltrators a Fletchit Blaster and Taser Goad instead. I nearly said Taser Toad. Sorry, it just reminds me of Monster Hunter with the paralysing toad. The Taser Goad just bumps up the strength and inflicts 3 hits. And on a roll of a 6, inflicts 3 hits rather than 1. So they're another elite choice. I don't know whether they needed it. So it just gives you another option other than Servitors and the Datasmith. You've got 2 elite specific units there for Mechanicus. On from that though, you've got another 2 specific elite choices, the Electro-priests. You've got 2 types, you've got the Fulgurite and the Corpuscari. The Fulgurite ones are the ones with the staves or the staffs or whatever. They just bump up their strength to strength 5, whoop-de-doo. But on wounds of 6+, targets are suffering D3 mortal wounds instead of the normal damage. That can be quite horrific. 2 attacks each, you can have 15 additional ones, you can have 20 in the squad. That's something to sort of avoid and shoot from afar. They've only got a 6+, well, it's t-shirt save really, isn't it? 6+ save. They don't have bionics. However, they do have the siphoned vigor, whereby if they wipe out an enemy unit in the fight phase, they do have the Voltergeist field, which is a 5+ invulnerable, which is nice. And it's the same for the Corpuscari. These guys are the ones that just have the gauntlets, and they can shoot those gauntlets. But personally for me, I'd go for the Fulgurite Electro-priests rather than the Corpuscari. Fast attack. They should have a lot of fast attack options here, but there are only 2. The Sidonian Dragoons and the Iron Strider Ballistari. The Sidonian Dragoons are the fast walkers. They're both 10-inch movement. They're the fast walkers that have the taser lances, and then you can swap the taser lances. So instead of them having in close combat, you can give them the Radium Jezzail, which is a 30-inch heavy 2-shot weapon, and it can target character models too. So that might be a good option. The weapon skill, ballistic skill is decent. Strength and toughness, very decent. They've got a lot of wounds. More attacks than the Ballistari, although you'd expect that. The leadership is 8 and the save is 4+. They've got a 6+ invulnerable. They've got the incense cloud as well. So they subtract the one from hit rolls, which is something that the Iron Strider doesn't have. Interesting. The Iron Strider has got less attacks, but you can either give it an autocannon, but you can give it a twin or Cognis autocannon, which is 4 shots, or a twin Cognis las cannon, which is 2 shots. You can have 6 of them in a unit, and again, that's the same with the Dragoons. Cheap, I want to say cheap, 3 for one of them, and you get a lot of flexibility and strategic choices with these 2 units. I will say that they're supposed to be very fast walkers, but 10 inches, they've now been overtaken by this little chap here, which is the newest Imperial Knight, the Armiger Warglaive. This guy can move a whopping 14 inches. This guy's faster than an Eldar grav tank with a turbo equipped. Probably not. But yeah, this thing now moves faster than the Dragoons and the Ballistari. So it depends what you want to go for. This thing will absolutely wreck face from 30 inches with its thermal spear, and also it's got its chain cleaver too. So it's going to be doing an awful lot of damage in combat. Plus it also has an invulnerable save, which is better than a 6+. Heavy support. You'd think for a kind of resilient shooting army that Adeptus Mechanicus would have a lot of gun. They'd have a lot of things to shoot with, such as big artillery, laser beam weapons, phosphor grenade reaper launcher vehicles. You'd think that they'd have a lot of artillery and laser based weaponry, but when it boils down to it, you've got a couple of robots and a spider. I'm just kidding. The choices are decent. They've done a good job with the rules for these. The Castellan robots, they are pricey. 12 power points, pricey, but the rules are just so good. Their movement is 8 inches, so they're moving a lot faster. They're moving faster than the rest of your force, as Dreadnought should do, in my opinion. Their weapon skill and ballistic skill isn't the best at all. Would be much better if it was 3+. Considering that they are, computers on legs, calculating firing trajectories and ranges and things like that, I just think it would be, better. Their strength is okay, their toughness is very good, they've got a lot of wounds each, 6. They've only got the 3 attacks, but their leadership is 10, which is really odd. And their save is 3+, so that's an okay save too. It consists of 2 robots, and you can have up to 4 more. So you can have 6 of these and 1 heavy support choice. They come with the fists and the Incendine Combustor. That's still a good go-to option, in my opinion. The Incendine Combustor is a flamer, but heavy D6 shots. It's strength 5, it's AP -1, and it automatically hits And the fists themselves add +4 to the strength. I see what you did there, Games Workshop. So you've got strength 10, and it's AP -3, and it's damage 3 too. So highly effective in close combat. However, this is where it gets interesting. You can replace the Incendiary Combustor with a heavy phosphor blaster, which is a 36-inch range. So it's now got an effective range of 44 inches, which is heavy 3 shot, strength 6, AP -2, and units attacked by the weapon don't gain any bonuses to their saving throws. You can also replace the fists with 2 heavy phosphor blasters. So you can have a whopping 9 shots there. They have the Canticles of the Unsire, they have a repulsor grid, so you've got a 5+ invulnerable save. However, what sets them apart from all the other units in this book are the battle protocols. When the unit's set up, you've got the Aegis protocol, which you add 1 to any armor and vulnerable saving throws that you make for the models in the unit. You add 1. That's incredible. So instead of the 3+, you're getting a 2+. Instead of the invulnerable 5+, you're getting the 4+ invulnerable. That's awesome. So it's a 2+ and a 4+ invulnerable straight out of the door. You can attempt to change the protocol at the start of each of the movement phase only if there's a datasmith within 6 inches. On a 2+, it's successful, and you can choose one of the protocols. So the Aegis is the top one. That's the default protocol that they have. You can change it to the Conqueror. The unit can't shoot, but it can fight twice in each fight phase instead of only once. That could be horrific. Suddenly you've then got 12 strength 10 AP -3 attacks coming your way. Or the Protector protocol, where the unit can't move or charge, but you can double the number of shots it makes with its range weapons. So then all of a sudden you've got 18 strength 6 AP -2 shots. Very nice. And of course its rules is it explodes as well. So really a great heavy support choice. It's got decent movement speed, decent range weapon, very tough, great in close combat, very resilient too. The Onager Dunecrawler, on the other hand, couldn't be further from that. So the Onager Dunecrawler is a little bit different than the Castellan robots. Firstly, it's cheaper in terms of power points cost. It fulfills a different role. The Castellan robots are quite good in combat, quite good at shooting, and they're very resilient. The Onager Dunecrawler, same toughness, although there's only one of them, same toughness, but more wounds. You've got 11 wounds, although you could argue actually that the Castellan robots, there's 2 of them, so there's 12 wounds. But the same save of 3+, but you've got a lot of options here for the weapons. It comes with an eradication beamer, which is a 36-inch range, heavy D6, strength 8, AP -2, D3 damage weapon. And also, if you're attacking units within 12 inches of the weapon, you get D3 shots, and you resolve the shots with an AP of -4, so even better in a way. You can replace that with a neutron laser, a Cognis heavy stomach, and a twin phosphor blaster, or an Icarus array. You can also take a heavy stubber, and you can take a broad spectrum data tether or smoke launchers. So the neutron laser is a whopping 48 inches, heavy D3, strength 10 though, and you treat damage rolls of a 1 or 2 made by the weapon as 3 instead. That's pretty good because it's got damage D6. So it might be worth you sitting back with a few of these with a heavy D3, strength 10 shots at 48-inch range and just blasting apart things. That's the way I would use it. Also, though, you could use the Icarus array and have it with and use the all of the weapons which are really aimed at flying vehicles. You know, you've got the Daedalus missile launcher, the Gatling rocket launcher, and the twin Icarus autocannons. All of those are, you subtract 1 from hit rolls, which isn't too bad because it's 3+ anyway, but you add 1 to hit rolls against units that can fly. So it does have an Emanatus force field, which is a 5+ invulnerable save, and you can re-roll them if it's within 6 inches of another Dunecrawler. That's pretty good, you know, re-rolling the ones for the force field. It's a crawler. It only advances D3, but ignores the -1 penalty to hit rolls for moving and firing heavy weapons. So it can move and fire that heavy weapon, so it gives it an effective range of the 56 inches for moving with the the eradication beamer and things. So very decent unit, excellent damage output, quite survivable with the invulnerable save, the 3+ normal, the toughness 7 and the 11 wounds. Highly versatile with the different weapons that it can pick. Don't leave home without a Dunecrawler, my best advice. And then the Codex covers all of the Knights, not the Armiger Warglaves that have just recently come out. They'll be in the Imperial Knights Codex along with the Castellan, but it covers all the different types of Knights, which, you know, Adeptus Mechanicus can take. So you've got the Knight Errant. So all of these Knights are Lords of War. You've got the Knight Errant, which is the one with the chain, which is the one with the Reaper Chainsword and the thermal cannon. 23 power points. They all fluctuate a little bit in terms of power points. Knights are still incredible. The 4 attacks, the 24 wounds, toughness and strength of 8. The Reaper Chainsword has had a bit of a debuff. Before it was an instant killing weapon, I think, and now it's just AP -3 and damage of 6, so not the best. The Thunderstrike Gauntlet, however, has had a buff. It's now strength 16 and it inflicts mortal wounds. So the Reaper Chainsword doesn't inflict the mortal wounds anymore, but the Thunderstrike Gauntlet does. It's got the Titanic Feet, it's got its 5+ invulnerable save. Knights are very, very good still, if not a bit pricey. But you having but you creating an Adeptus Mechanicus force around one of these things to sort of protect it and buff it and to help it and regain the lost wounds and things like that is a good way of keeping it in the battle longer and maintaining that high damage output. You know, even the thermal cannon is 36-inch range, and you couple that with its movement speed of 12 inches, you've got an effective range there of 48 inches. It's pretty much going to be able to cover anything on the battlefield. A Knight Paladin, if you choose one of these, it's equipped with a rapid fire battle cannon, which, although they don't have the blast markers anymore, which is a bit disappointing, they still have the range of 72 inches, which is a very long range, and a heavy 2d6 strength 8, but it's only AP -2 and damage is only D3. So similar to the Errant, but just with that rapid fire battle cannon. Costs more as well. The Knight Warden offers you the chance of having the Avenger Gatling cannon, which is same range as a thermal cannon, the 36-inch range. You get 12 shots, you get a nice strength of 6, AP -2, but damage 2 is good. And you can have the Warden with a Thunderstrike Gauntlet. And then the Gallant, which is the cheapest of the bunch, you just have the Chainsword. You just have the Reaper Chainsword and the Thunderstrike Gauntlet. I suppose you could bump up its damage output by putting a Carapace weapon on there as well, just to improve its anti-troop or anti-tank, or even give it some anti-air defensive capabilities. And then the most expensive one in this codex, no doubt the Castellan will be most expensive one in the Imperial Knights Codex. The most expensive one is the Knight Crusader. Its power points cost of 27, and it's equipped with the Avenger Gatling cannon and thermal cannon. Although you can replace the thermal cannon with a rapid fire battle cannon, but you can't, of course, replace the Gatling cannon with a battle cannon, or vice versa. So you can't have 2 rapid fire battle cannons or 2 thermal cannons. You can only have the Avenger Gatling cannon and either the thermal cannon or the rapid fire battle cannon. So that's the Crusader, and that's the end of the unit profiles. A fair number of data sheets in this one. 14 pages, not as many as the new Necron Codex, which I've recently gone through, but a decent amount. I would still like some kind of troop transport, even if it was just a Forge World model that they're shoehorned in. I would still like some kind of flyer, which they're severely lacking. The only sort of anti-flyer capabilities they've got is on the Onager and on the Imperial Knights. But the Armiger Warglaves definitely bump this army up a bit more now, and obviously the Castellan give it the best shooting output now for the Knights. On the next page, you've got the Armory of the Forge Worlds, which just gives you all the ranged weapons, all their profiles, quick glance, you can see what they do, and then more ranged weapons. So it shows that it's quite a shooty army, couple of pages there of ranged weapons, half a page of melee weapons. Again, normally like a page break showing you an image of the Mechanicum, this time against the Tyranids. Congregations of War and the Forge World Dogma, different dogma for the different Forge Worlds. Just choose a Forge World and then pick that dogma. You've got the stratagems, the Warlord traits, the Arcana Mechanicum or Arcana Mechanicum, which are all the little relics and things that they can use. The points values. Strange that the other war gear is there. They didn't manage to fit it in there, but they've got a nice sort of sketch drawing of the Castellan and Datasmith. And then tactical objectives, like all the other codexes. That's the same sort of layout. So 104 pages, not a huge amount. I would have liked to have seen this at 120 or more. No doubt if they had the Warglaves and the Castellan Knights in here, it would be breaching 120 or so, but still it's more than 100 pages, which is great. And it's just excellent that you've got Imperial Knights in here and Skitarii and Cult Mechanicus in one book, in one 8th edition book. Fantastic book. I'm really looking forward to the Armiger being in its own book, and the Castellan, of course. But yeah, I definitely feel that, not necessarily a missed opportunity, but at the moment, especially with what Forge World have done with the beta rules for Custodes, and the fact that Custodes in the 41st millennium can still use like a Coronis grav tank and the Dreadnoughts and things like that, and the Caladius grav tanks too. I think that in the past 10,000 years, one would assume that the Mechanicum have changed even less than the Custodes forces and things, because of just the stubborn sort of nature and refusal to improve and advance technologically as a race, you know, as an army, whatever, as a faction. I just think Games Workshop could build on the success from the Custodes and bring in some of the Forge World vehicles that they've made and give them kind of 40k beta rules too, like they did many years ago with Space Marines and Imperial Guard, and bringing those into the same game system. Anyway, what do you guys think of the Adeptus Mechanicus Codex? I've had this codex for a while now, but because of the Forgebane set and because I've been making quite a few review videos of Mechanicus units, I just really wanted to bring you this review of the codex. It just seemed like the right time to do that. Anyway, what do you guys think of this codex? Please do put it down in the comments below. Thank you ever so much for joining me today. Thank you for watching. The Emperor Protects.